Hello there, people of the internet. I'm doing some reorganizing, so I figured I'd go ahead and go through the guns that I have out, make some videos on them, because they normally sit in the back of the closet, or the back of the safe, or the back of where it is I'm storing my guns, and I don't really touch them. So, I noticed that whenever I pulled out the things that I'm looking for, I pulled out essentially some of my favorite rifles. Like I was just going through and I was like, man, I gotta take this thing out to shoot it. And then I was going through, man, I gotta take this thing out to shoot it. And oh, I like that one right there. And I noticed that some of my favorite rifles are actually carbines, however it is you feel like pronouncing that. And while I was going through these, I was like, hey, you know it'd be fun making a video where I talk about my 5 favorite carbines that I have in my collection. I got the hiccups, guys. I'm sorry about that. I've had the hiccups all day. No idea why. So, this is me making my video on my top 5 favorite carbines that I have in my collection. So let's get started. First one, this is a Carcano, however it is you want to pronounce this rifle. Of course, you are wrong and everyone else is correct. Or everyone else is wrong and you are correct. One of those two things. I need some coffee. Alright, so this is not the one that I have in mind, but I have a particular Carcano that is stupidly accurate. I've made videos on the channel about it before, taken it out, shot it at varying distances actually. But I have one of these Mauser carbines with the bayonet affixed to it, which just absolutely shoots, just lights out accurate. Like stacked bullets on top of another level of accurate. And I have a particular loading of 6.5 Carcano that I normally run through these rifles, and that just mixes so well. Like that loading with that rifle is just top tier, and it is beautifully, beautifully done. But that right there is probably one of my favorite carbines that I have in my collection. Issue is, it is back there in that big pile, and I didn't want to dig it out, so I just grabbed this. It looks identical to this. The only difference is this is a Brescia and that one is a Gardone. I've noticed that the Italian rifles, the Gardone rifles, seem to be the most accurate. I don't know why. It's just the manufacturer of that particular rifle. I guess that they just did better with with making their barrels. Not certain, but that particular one is quite accurate. I slugged the barrel on it. It came out to a 2.66 diameter bore. And I normally fire 2.64 diameter bullets through it. If I could get some proper sized bullets for it, then I would be probably just blown away at how accurate that rifle actually is. Anyway, that is one of my all-time favorite carbines. So, up next, you guys have seen this one on the channel numerous times. This is a... Actually, it looks like a jungle carbine, but it's not a jungle carbine. It's made to look like a number 5, but this one is actually a number 1 Mark III that's been cut down to look like a number 5. Now, I have debated on getting a number 5 before, but number 5s have issues with a wandering zero, and it is a significant issue. I've tested it myself, and yeah, it's absolutely a thing. It is a real thing. But the number 1 Mark III receiver cut down to look like a number 5, and just the way that this rifle is, I've had absolutely no issues with a wandering zero. It hits right at point of aim at 100 yards. Now, it does have a 300, 600 yard sight that has been like added into the charger bridge back here with a... Never mind, I'm not going to use that word because YouTube doesn't like it. But the rear sight is added to the charger bridge, so if you do want to charge your rounds in, you got to flip your rear sight out of the way. Really not that big of a deal. And with where this is at, it's not quite at the elevation that it normally would be on a regular jungle carbine or a regular number 1 Mark III. Although this does say physically on it 300 yard zero, it zeroes at 100 yards right at point of aim with 150 grain bullets. So this is one of my favorite rifles. I typically load 303 British. I undercharge most of my loadings whenever I take them out to shoot them. And I'll undercharge mine by about 10%. And normally 303 British through a rifle like this would like really kick the hell out of your shoulder, but undercharged ever so slightly turns this into a really nice, comfortable shooter. It's lightweight. I got a sling on here. I think that this is an old Thompson submachine gun sling, but I could be wrong about that. Takes #1 Mark III mags because it is a #1 Mark III that just looks like a jungle carbine. Flash hider on it, I have no idea what material this actually is. It almost looks like a cast pot metal. I have heard of these having issues with essentially exploding, but I have not had any issues myself with it. So this right here absolutely makes that list. I've taken this thing hunting and camping and on all sorts of trips, backpacking, hiking. I mean, you name it. This right here is one of my main go-to grabs just because of the sling that's on it and how it's already on it and how lightweight it is and how accurate it is and my 303 rounds and how they just don't beat the hell out of you. Alright, up next we have another Carcano. I did a video a while ago where I said that this was my favorite bolt-action rifle that I have, and that probably still stands. This is I think it's a 9124, but there's so many different models out there that have just little tiny tweaks to them, but I'm pretty sure that this is a 9124. We got a barrel band that is separate from the nose cap, and we got a full-length rifle sight on this thing. So out at longer distances, the bullets probably wouldn't stabilize from this thing because of that gain twist rifling that's been cut, but it stabilizes enough for me to get about pie plate accuracy out of this thing at about 100 yards or so, which is plenty for me because I never really shoot out past that distance. I won't exactly use this for any real practical purposes, as basically no one would use a 6.5 Carcano for any real practical purposes. I just really like this thing. It's lightweight, the ammunition for it shoots very lightly. This particular one, normally Carcanos shoot like really high, this particular one does not. It shoots basically at point of aim whenever I bury my front sight into my rear sight and take aim at my target at 100 yards. And of all of my rifles, if I had to pick one to be my favorite, if we're talking bolt-action carbines, it would still probably be this one. It is just so nice. It is so lightweight. It is so fantastic in so many ways. The bolt, smooth, holds 6 rounds. I don't like the fact that I have to use in-block clips for your Carcano, but that's just a fault of the Mannlicher design, however it is you want to pronounce that name. This particular one is a 1918 production by Turney. Very, very nice rifle. Alright, up next, I have... This is a Spanish Oviedo Mauser from this is an 1893 Mauser, but this is a 1916 rifle. 1893, that is the pattern of action, and 1916 is the model of Mauser. So, these were originally chambered in 7mm Mauser, which is a fantastic shooting cartridge. But then in, I believe, the 1960s, somewhere around that time period, the Spanish rechambered them for essentially 7.62 NATO. Technically 7.62 Setme, which was a lower pressure version of 7.62 NATO, because the Spanish didn't know if these rifles could handle 7.62 NATO pressures. We now know they absolutely can. Various tests have been done on that front. But I fired, I don't know how many thousands of rounds of 7.62 NATO through this particular rifle. I think it has held up fine. I have fired full power 308 rounds through one of these rifles before, and that rifle did blow up on me, so I can honestly say that these rifles are not designed for 308 pressures. They do seem to be able to handle it for a while, but just because of those increased pressures, you do have a walking headspace. And I wish that I was smart enough to see those signs, and it did blow up my rifle. Luckily I was okay, but it did happen. So this particular one, I only fire 7.62 NATO through it, but I also fire hand loads through it. I load black powder 308s, and I do that because I can load black powder 308 for like 10 cents a shot versus going out and buying 7.62 NATO for, after taxes and shipping and whatnot, probably about 75-80 cents a shot. I'd rather just load black powder rounds at 10 cents a shot. This way I can go out and actually shoot my gun all day long. I don't know what the Spanish did with their rifling inside of their Mausers with these things. I don't know what's special about it, But normally, whenever you're firing black powder cartridges through your rifle, you get loss of accuracy as you shoot it more and more just because of black powder fouling. I don't have that problem with this Spanish rifle. I have no idea why. Like I said, I got no idea why. I literally would go out. Do I have it in here with me? I do not. I have this bag that I consistently reload over and over and over of 100 rounds of 308 ammo, and I load it with black powder. And I go out to the range, and I got a little 6-inch gong, and I'll stick it down at 100 yards, and I'll just shoot and clink that thing over and over and over and over with my black powder 308 loads. Then if I tried that with any other rifle, I would start getting bigger and bigger groups. Like, your cone of fire just significantly diminishes. Well, it significantly increases in size as you shoot black powder through most of your rifles because of that black powder fouling. But with this one right here, it just doesn't happen. Like, I ran that whole bag of 100 rounds of 308 black powder through this thing. Like, I had no loss of accuracy whatsoever. So that definitely falls into the category of one of my favorite carbines. Not only that, but it's beautiful too. Like, look at the tiger striping on this thing. Absolutely phenomenal. It really is a nice rifle. Alright, another one of my favorite carbines. I think that this one definitely deserves to be on the list. I have an M1 carbine right here. This is like the first military issue PCC, like the first real concept that brought a PCC to life. 30 caliber carbine has about the same power as a 357 Magnum. There's a little bit of discrepancy there. That definition is quite loose, but about the same power as 357 Magnum. Most of the ones you find are going to be the M1 carbine with the 15-round magazine. They do make 30-round mags. There is the M2 carbine, which is like a full auto version of this. Like, that is way less common than what we have right here. So, how do I get started? This carbine was actually made by accident, sort of, based off of a rifle that was intended to compete with the M1 Grand. Did not compete with the M1 Grand. Well, it sort of did not. We're not really going to go into history of that. But long story short, that rifle was not going to replace the Grand. The United States military said, hey, give us something like that rifle that you have there in like a pistol caliber, because we want something that can substitute the 1911 to be able to touch out to farther distances. We're going to give it to people who don't necessarily need to be carrying around a M1 Grand, like truck drivers, artillery people. They gave it to paratroopers whenever they were jumping out of planes because it's nice and lightweight. They effectively wanted a carbine that would be effective out to like 300 yards. These are very lightweight, like very, very lightweight. I would love to have walked around, like if I was stuck in the Second World War, I would love to have walked around with something like this as opposed to a very heavy M1 Grand. Relatively powerful for what the cartridge is. It's not a 30-06. It's certainly not going to be a big game hunting round or anything like that. But for what the cartridge is, it definitely has a fair bit of power behind it. These do take external mags. The magazines on these rifles can be a little bit wonky, so find yourself a set of mags that works and I guess protect them with your life. But lightweight, very easy to shoot, very, very little recoil, relatively accurate for what they are. Again, they're not precision rifles, they're not sniper rifles, but within about 300 yards, you can make hits on target pretty gosh darn easily with these things. In terms of power, within about 100 yards, they have about the same levels of energy transfer on your target as a 223 round. Now, beyond that, you start to see some real significant discrepancies with that. But within that 100-yard mark, which is where most of your situations that you would ever come across needing one of these would happen, it has about that same level of energy. Okay, well, that is my top 5 favorite carbines that I have in my collection. And I'm sure some people are going to agree or disagree, because I definitely have quite a few more carbines that could have made this list. But I think that out of the ones I chose a good, solid top 5. So thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.